Hey everyone, welcome back. When it comes to the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, music isn't usually the first topic one would bring up. I love video game music. It's one of my many fascinations when it comes to game design. A fitting music track can elevate your experience of playing a game tenfold, but only when it's done right. Unfortunately, the first few games never had a chance to try and find these fitting tracks. The series is known for fantastic character design, deep lore, unique gameplay, but the OST has never been considered something special. This is mostly because music wasn't a present thing in a majority of the early titles. The gameplay of FNAF heavily relies on sound cues. Because of this, the only quote-unquote music you would hear in most of these early games was eerie ambiance and the spinning of your metal desk fan. But today, I want to talk about a music track from the FNAF franchise that has been held in high regard for years. After doing some research on it, I found it left behind an interesting history that many people might not know about. It's one that I found a lot of newfound appreciation in, and I want to share that appreciation with all of you. If you enjoy this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and drop a hype if you can. They help my channel's growth immensely. I also want to say thank you all so much for the positive reaction of my previous musical analysis on Bonnie's Lullaby. I'm glad you liked it, and I hope you like this one just as much. Comment down below some of your personal favorite tracks from the FNAF franchise. I love seeing the varying choices and hearing why they're each person's favorite. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the first Five Nights at Freddy's game to introduce music during your nights, technically, Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. Sister Location as a mainline game was a lot of firsts for the franchise. The first game with a more supplemental main narrative, the first game to feature voice acting, the first game to integrate lore from the books into the games. But one of the big firsts is that this was the first mainline FNAF game to have a completely original score. Unlike FNAF 1, 2, 3, and 4, where the score comprises of stock music, every track that's featured in Sister Location was composed specifically for the game by the talented Leon Riskin. Riskin was originally contracted to work on the previous game, the spin-off RPG, FNAF World. He composed the entirety of FNAF World's score, making him the third person to work on the franchise in a professional capacity. The first two being Scott Cawthon himself and Kira Breed Risley, who authored the Silver Eyes trilogy. After his work on FNAF World and Sister Location, Leon would be featured as a composer on almost every single FNAF game that came out afterwards. On top of that, he also publishes his own original music. I've listened to some of his albums while making this video, and I really like them. I'd recommend Guided by the Moon if you want to get into his non-video game related music. It's very relaxing to listen to if you're stressed. But back to his work on Sister Location, Leon composed the entirety of the tracks featured in the game, and they're all really good. Most of the music consists of simple ambiance due to the nature of the early nights, but there are some true bangers. You just have to play for a while to discover them. Unlike previous FNAF games, which had the player sit in one static location while fending off the animatronic threats, each night of Sister Location has you complete different tasks to maintain the animatronics and the facility they're housed in. As you make your way through the game, you'll start to hear some small snippets of what's to come. The elevator jingle, the Immortal and the Restless intro, Ballora's music box, all subtly hinting to the player that this game got a musical upgrade. And these teases all pay off when you make it to your fifth night. The night plays out similarly to the others. You make your way through the location to fix the animatronics, but it all comes to a head right after you fix Circus Baby and are instructed to follow her directions through Ballora Gallery. Now, to hear what you've been waiting for, you have to get the non-canonical ending. If you play through the canon ending by following Baby's instructions, the only track you'll hear is Mike's TV playing the intro to The Immortal and the Restless as it's revealed that his insides have been scooped out and the animatronics are wearing him as a skid suit. But once you discover how to get the secret non-canon ending and you fumble around in the dark to find a secret room viewable only on a map of the facility, you are greeted to this. If you followed the secret map layout, you'll find yourself in a hidden private room. In this room, you get to experience the classic FNAF sit and survive gameplay formula while facing off against the amalgamation that is Ennard, a mass of wires and entrails comprised of all the Funtime animatronics. It wasn't just Circus Baby that was guiding you, it was Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy, and Funtime Foxy mashed into this Frankenstein-esque creature. You can fend Ennard off by watching the cameras, shutting the doors, checking the vents, classic Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay. This room has a ton of lore implications, from the Fredbear plush to the camera angles on the FNAF 4 bedroom, but we aren't here for any of that. We are here for this music track, because finally you get to hear a substantial piece of music composed specifically for this encounter. This theme is named Watcher 6 and is the first proper music track to be played during a night in a Five Nights at Freddy's game. The name is both a callback to the same term used in the military, meaning to stay alert to danger and watch your back, while also being a reference to the goal of all of the early FNAF games, making it to 6 AM. I adore this track. Not only does it give off the feeling of intense eeriness, but it also does what every early FNAF game was so great at doing. You see, the track isn't overpowering, it's the perfect tempo to have in the background while focusing on the task at hand, but it doesn't fade into the background like other tracks would. Instead, it inspires a feeling you may not even notice at first, the feeling of rising panic. The theme slowly gets more intense as it plays, building up to a sense of impending doom, and then loops in on itself naturally at the height of its intensity to restart all over again. It becomes a roller coaster that increases your stress as the night goes on before lowering it again to repeat the cycle, almost like a pattern of panic that becomes apparent in your gameplay as you fend off Ennard in this boss battle of a night, your powers slowly draining as the time ticks down. It fits with the franchise's identity perfectly. We couldn't have gotten a better introduction to original music for the series, but for many fans, this wasn't the theme that stuck out to them. You see, after you beat Ennard and complete the non-canon ending, you unlock access to Sister Location's Custom Night mode. This mode was added as an update a while after the game's release, and you can kinda tell why when you see how the Custom Night is set up. Unlike FNAF 1 and FNAF 2's Custom Nights, which just let you play a standard night and set the AI difficulty levels of the animatronics, Sister Location's Custom Night is made from the ground up. It reuses the private room from the non-canon ending, but all of the animatronics, renders, and mechanics are completely brand new, all to create a classic FNAF experience with the funtime animatronics. It includes most of the animatronics from the main game and some brand new ones created specifically for the mode. The Custom Night is the reason why I go back to replay Sister Location. It offers a lot of fun and gives us the epilogue to the game that leads into Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. But the biggest positive of this mode to me is its musical score. The Custom Night update not only came with more lore and more animatronics, but also more music. On top of the music in the retro cutscenes, ending cinematic, and select screen, we also received 3 different tracks that will play during the nights. I love all of these tracks, but there is one that I find myself going back to over and over again. At some point, maybe I'll go back and cover the other 2 tracks, The Forbidden Nocturne and Drag Me to the Crusher. But for today, I want to focus on the track you've all been waiting for. Here it is. If this theme sounds familiar to you, that's because it's a remix of Watcher 6. All 3 of these Custom Night tracks are inspired by other tracks in Sister Location. Drag Me to the Crusher being inspired by the title theme, The Forbidden Nocturne being inspired by Ballora's music box, and of course, this track, named Venta Black, being inspired by Watcher 6. Similar to Watcher 6, Venta Black is also named by using wordplay. The chemical substance known as Venta Black is an ultra-black coating made of vertically aligned carbon nanotubes. This substance is famous for absorbing over 99% of visible light, making objects painted in it look like a dark shadow. The Venta portion of the name is also a reference to vents, being a primary way animatronics try to get into your office in a majority of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. When talking about the theme itself, compared to Watcher 6, Venta Black is much more subtle. It doesn't have nearly the same intensity as the previous theme. I think this works well though, since Watcher 6 was composed with Ennard being the only threat you had to keep in mind. It was a one-on-one battle where he was a challenging threat, but as long as you paid attention and Watcher 6, you can manage him pretty well. The Custom Night has way more threats to keep track of, so toning the music down a bit so the player can focus was probably for the best. However, this theme doesn't inspire a feeling of rising panic in me like how Watcher 6 does. It inspires an entirely different feeling. If you listen, you may hear something in the background. By listening closely, you can hear what sounds to be the ticking of a clock, something new present only in Venta Black. It every so often fades out, but it always comes back, an omnipresent reminder that you are making progress during this night. The time is slowly ticking down, and you're getting closer to winning. Upon this discovery, it was then that I realized what the feeling this song gives off truly was. Venta Black inspires a visceral feeling when I hear it. To feel visceral means to respond with raw emotion instead of intellect. In layman's terms, it means to go with your gut. And that makes sense for Sister Location's custom night. In the higher difficulties, your vision will be mostly obscured by the mini-renas, a set of small ballerina animatronics originally made to accompany Ballora. These things cannot be removed from your face and permanently obstruct your vision as your night goes on, meaning to play the game on higher difficulties, you have to mostly respond to the audio cues the animatronics give off and memorize your controls. The game forces you to listen closely and go with your gut instincts instead of visually confirming what you have to do, which makes this theme all the more fitting to me. Watcher 6 feels like a boss theme, a track that inspires rising panic as this giant, nearly unstoppable threat is coming after you. But Venta Black feels like a call to action, a reminder that you have to go with your gut and fight back against these monsters in your halls as your night goes on. But every choice you make, every second you survive, that clock ticks down, and you make it closer and closer to victory. With this in mind, you can see how Venta Black's composition would go on to inspire many future tracks in the FNAF series, specifically Necessary Evil in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator and Isotrophobia in Ultimate Custom Night. I've loved listening to Venta Black while I'm working, usually when I'm editing visuals for my videos. It helps me push myself to get them done and go with my gut when it comes to making editing decisions. I originally listened to the theme again after all these years because so many people in my comments for my previous musical analysis on Bonnie's Lullaby said it was their favorite. After listening to and analyzing it, I see why. The track made me revisit and remember how good the music was in Sister Location. Leon really delivered for his first mainline FNAF game. I liked his music in FNAF World, but Sister Location really proved how versatile his compositions can be. All of the music in this game is great, but Venta Black is something special to me, and it seems like it was special to the fan base as well, because this wouldn't be the last time this track would be revisited. It would technically come back 5 years after Sister Location's release in the mixed bag that is Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. You don't need me to tell you how messed up the development of this game was. There are hundreds of YouTube videos talking about how rough Security Breach's production was and how much had to be cut from the finished product. It's a shame, and it makes me wish that the game had better management before its release. Despite the rough development, Leon Riskin was once again brought back as a composer, and while he did a great job, I also want to give credit to the other composer behind Security Breach, Alan Simpson. The two did a great job scoring the game, as there are so many memorable tracks that have become synonymous with the franchise. If nothing else, this game absolutely delivered when it came to its music. Both composers did great and deserve their flowers, but unfortunately, like so many other things tied to the development of Security Breach, not everything made it into the final game. There were a few tracks that Leon and Alan composed that were unfortunately cut from the release, only being present in the game files and outside releases. But there's one cut track in particular that may sound familiar. This theme is called Snap Goes the Spinal Cord, and no, I didn't say that wrong, this is the official name. A little silly, but it's not like the other song titles weren't silly. Like the previous themes, this one is also a play on words, the first reference being to Pop Goes the Weasel, a music track very present in the series, mostly through the puppet. The second being a reference to a final chord, which is the concluding harmony present in a musical piece, and the third being a play on words of snapping someone's spinal cord, which is probably the most on the nose reference out of all of them. Even with this new name, if you listen, you can immediately tell what this song is calling back to. This is Venta Black, but it feels so different in tone compared to the previous pieces. This new theme is much more sinister sounding. You can hear the clicking of metal joints, the winding of rusted gears, and the loud bangs of an empty drum mimicking slow, inhuman footsteps. It's incredibly atmospheric and matches the ugly underbelly of the Pizzaplex perfectly. But what's what's really interesting is how this track actually combines the two feelings you get from the previous tracks. Snap Goes the Spinal Cord has that feeling of rising panic from Watcher 6, while also inspiring the viscerality you would feel from Venta Black. It's a perfect marriage of both musical themes and the feelings they give the player, which makes it an honest shame that it was cut from the game. Not only would it have been a nice surprise for longtime fans, it would have been one of the only pieces of music from the original games to come back in a new way. I'm 90% certain that this was going to be used for the massive leftover animatronics we see in the burn trap ending of Security Breach. I speculate we were originally supposed to get a more substantial boss fight at some point, but like everything else, it was cut from the final game. It would fit thematically since this thing, which is apparently officially named Tangle, I still like the popular fan name, the Amalgamatronic. Either way, it would fit thematically since Funtime Freddy's mask is used as this thing's face. Using a remix theme from Sister Location would have been so cool, but like so many other great things that would have been in this game, time just didn't allow for it to be finished. It's a shame. So that makes 3 different tracks, all with different names, that appear in different parts of FNAF's history, but are all tied together through their similar composition. Even if the most recent remix of this track didn't end up being used, it's really cool how this familiar melody stood out so much that it almost made it into a completely different era of the franchise. But for now, that wraps up all of the game appearances of this familiar theme, but it is technically not the most recent version of this theme released officially, because out of absolutely nowhere, on October 14th, 2025, Leon Riskin posted to his official Twitter account, and I quote, "The 99.95% original version of Venta Black Desire." The video attached to this tweet has a simple black background with white letters saying Venta Black Desire Draft 1. Let's take a listen. So almost immediately, the draft's similarity to the final composition is incredibly apparent. The draft has the same slow, ticking nature of the final version, but unlike the final version, which is understated enough to meld into the background of your gameplay, this one is a lot more profound and gets your attention. The piano, which remains very subdued in the final version, builds up in the draft to the eerie bit of the song in a grand way. It, funny enough, sounds very similar to the music of Five Nights at Freddy's AR Special Delivery, which has a very similar rhythm when it comes to the piano. I'm glad Leon got to use some of these ideas again for Special Delivery's soundtrack. That game had a lot of problems, but at the very least, music wasn't one of them. Overall, I understand why this theme had to be reworked a bit. I like it, it sounds powerful, but it doesn't really give off the visceral feeling the finalized version does. The first draft, to me, more inspires the feeling of rough resistance, like you're taking a stand against something despite being at a disadvantage, which, while a good feeling to have for something like the Ennard fight, it was important that none of these custom night tracks overpower your gameplay. You have a lot more things to balance compared to the Ennard fight, and I think the finalized version does its job well at melding into the gameplay and becoming part of it. Though the most interesting thing about this first draft's release to me is that it's not called Venta Black, it's called Venta Black Desire. Now, there is a bit of confusion when it comes to Venta Black's name, as for the longest time, it's only been referred to as just Venta Black. I did my research as to why this is the case, and I think I found the reason why this song seems to have 2 names. Credit to Phil LeBrave at Cawthon Medias for finding this. Found in the United States Copyright Office, apparently there are 2 copyrighted versions of Venta Black that are labeled Venta Black Desire versions 1 and 2 respectively. The copyright was registered on December 6th, 2016, which would line up nicely with the release of Sister Location's Custom Night. The copyright seems to hint that we've been using a nickname for the theme for the longest time. The official name has always been Venta Black Desire, but it seems it's been often shortened down to just Venta Black. It's fascinating, and I wonder why it was never officially clarified that the name we've been using for almost a decade was a nickname. But what's cooler is that since there are 2 copyrighted versions of the song, it's pretty likely that the first draft Leon posted is this first version, with the finalized song used in the game being version 2. It's pretty cool to look back on all this information that was gathered over years and see the mystery slowly make sense as time goes on. And with this draft, we have now listened to and analyzed every single official version of Venta Black. Now that we've done this, I think it's a good time to move on to some thoughts concerning all 4 tracks, and to do that, we'll need some background music. That's why I'd like to welcome back a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like for you to welcome pianist Botao Mo back to the channel, who will be performing a special piano cover of Venta Black while we talk. At a surface level, this song shouldn't have made the impact that it did. It wasn't a major boss theme, it wasn't the music for a pivotal turning point in the story, and it wasn't even featured in the main meat of the game it debuted in. It was only present in an extra unlockable mode and is one of 3 different remix themes that has a chance of playing if you start a night. But despite that, Venta Black somehow managed to become one of the most iconic music tracks in Sister Location. You'd think it would be Watcher 6, since that was the major boss theme to accompany Ennard, but no, it's always been Venta Black. The song that stuck with us, the song that would inspire so much of the future soundtracks of the Five Nights at Freddy's games, the song that stays in our heads even after we finish the game. After listening to it again, it does make sense why it stuck out. The theme helps reinforce the eerie stillness of what should be a silent night. It calls for us to look into the inky blackness that surrounds us, but the song doesn't encourage us to cower in fear. It calls for us to go with our visceral reaction, to stand up against the monsters of the night and continue to ward them off as our clock ticks down ever slowly. Watcher 6 was a great first track to properly usher in original music to the franchise, but Venta Black cemented the identity of what the future soundtracks should feel like. An overwhelming feeling of eerie stillness that calls for the player to fight back against the evil that's out to get them. Venta Black, or Venta Black Desire, whatever name it may go by, its legacy is still felt even to this day through the soundtrack of more recent games like Help Wanted 2 or Secret of the Mimic. So if you ever boot up Sister Location again, start up a custom night and hear this song playing, stand strong and let that visceral feeling in your gut guide your actions. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to give a special thank you to Botao for coming back and doing another cover. He did great as always. If you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and a hype if you can. They help my growth immensely. Comment down below if there are any other songs in the Five Nights at Freddy's OSTs you'd like to see me talk about. I've really enjoyed making videos like these, and I'd love to keep doing them if you'd all like to keep watching them. I have some ideas on what to cover next, a certain music box being the most obvious one, but I'm always interested in hearing what you'd all like to see as well. Regardless, I'm gonna head out for now. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all later. Bye bye! Hey, great job, man. Thanks for your help. All right, now get out of here.